Hi friends, Heather here with the La Crosse Public Library, and for today's Mindful Makers craft project, we're going to be discussing paper quilling. Quilling is the art of rolling and shaping paper strips to create decorative designs. It's a relatively simple craft that's repetitive and perfectly suited for a mindfulness practice today. Okay, to get started, the first thing we're going to do is to unpack our kit, and in the kit you will find a half sheet of cardstock, which we can set aside because we won't need that until the end of the project. You'll find various colors of paper strips, as well as a little bit thicker, darker color strips. You will find some Elmer's glue and your quilling tool. So the tool has two ends. It has a slotted end, if you can see that right there. That's the end that we will primarily be using for our quilling practice. And then it also has a kind of a needle point at the end. This can be helpful for applying glue or actually manipulating the shape of the coil. It might also be helpful to grab a piece of scrap paper or a napkin and then a pair of scissors if you would like to cut your coils smaller than what they are. The paper we'll use for dabbing or glue, as we'll find out shortly. Less is definitely more when it comes to glue for paper quilling, so it's easier just to kind of dab your glue on your paper and then use your needle point to put your tool into the glue. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get started with our first coil. So go ahead and grab one of your color paper strips. Then take your quilling tool and line up the end through the slotted bit. And you want to use your thumb and your forefinger to kind of hold it in place. And then we're just going to start rolling. We want to try to keep it as even as possible because we don't want any space between the gaps of our coil. So you can just kind of feel free to redirect it if it does kind of move about a bit. But you just hold it and roll it. And hopefully you can see there. And we'll just kind of guide it onto the tool. Okay, once you're done rolling your tight coil, you'll go ahead and take it off of the tool. And while you're still holding it in one hand, you want to kind of keep it compressed. You'll use the other hand to undo your glue, and then you can put just a little dab on your paper. And then we can use the needle end of our quilling tool to kind of dip that in. And we want just a tiny little dot on the end of our paper here. And then we will just roll it over and seal the deal here. And then we have our tight coil. Okay, so for our next coil, we are going to do a loose coil, which is essentially the same thing as a tight coil, but we'll just open it up a bit. So we'll insert our paper and we will start making our coil. And just a little tip, I have found that if you turn the paper away from you, you do have a little bit more of control than if you turn it towards you. So clockwise versus counterclockwise does kind of help you guide it on a little bit better, if you can see that there. So basically, we're just going to keep rolling our coil onto our quilling tool here. And again, it is a very kind of entrancing process, so hopefully you're enjoying this portion for your mindful minute as we're focusing on the feel of the paper, staying mindful. All right, and now when we get to the end of the coil, we're going to do the same thing, kind of carefully remove it from the prongs of the tool. We will then, we have two options. We can either use the tool to manipulate the center to kind of open it up more in the middle, or we can place it down on the surface of our desk here and just kind of let it unfurl, and then it will kind of open up right before you. Again, you can use the tool if you want to kind of enlarge it a bit or manipulate the center of the coil, but that is a loose coil, and then we'll just apply some glue to the end. Okay, and so I'm going to continue to show you the various shapes you can make with a closed loose coil like we have right here. The possibilities are pretty much endless. For our project today, I made a few shapes in the shape of a leaf. So in order to do that, all you do is just kind of squeeze. You can squeeze both ends, or you could put one with more of a point, but you just kind of squeeze and manipulate it until it looks like the shape you're going for. So that looks leaf-like to me. Another option you can do is a bit of a teardrop option. So I've squeezed the top and left the bottom in place. You can kind of do one that's folded over, kind of a teardrop with a bit of a bent here. You can also fold in the middle and make a marquee shape here like this, or like a bit of an eye. So again, possibilities are endless. This is all just using this basic loose coil, and then you just manipulate the paper into whatever shape you would like. Okay, the last shape we're going to discuss is an open coil, and as you can see, it's simply a coil that is not glued on the end, so we can leave it open as wide and as long as you want. So this is kind of an open scroll here. This one here, I went and curled the end in an opposite direction to kind of elongate it a bit and give it a little more interest and design. This is more of an S shape scroll, so I did fold the paper in half and scrolled them in opposite directions, and then I just kind of gave it a little tail on the end. So there are pretty much limitless variations of what you can do just doing these basic shapes of the tight coil and the loose coil and the open coil. So there are no rules, no wrong, no right, so just feel free to twirl your shapes and enjoy the process. Okay, so once you are done coiling your colored papers in any direction or shape you would like, feel free, if you would like to do the project in this direction, to kind of arrange them so that they look like a tree. So I went kind of with a windswept fall blowing leaf tree here. And now we're going to use these tan and brown strips to make our tree base and our trunk and our roots. So basically, same process. You can arrange them however you like. No right or wrong way to do it. You could kind of fold it in half and then roll out your roots. You could cut it, whatever you would like to do. I will say the darker the cardstock is, the thicker it is, so it's going to be more difficult to put it in the slots of the tool. So you might just have to kind of hold it around the base of the tool and twirl it that way because it is a little bit thicker. It might not fit within the prongs there, but you can still feel free to use the tool in any way to manipulate it. So whatever you think your tree trunk should look like, or again, you do not have to go in this direction, whatever you would like to do for your tree, please feel free to do, and I look forward to seeing what you decide to create. Okay, and now comes the fun part of arranging all of the beautiful shapes that you've just created. Again, you do not have to follow this design at all whatsoever. This is something I just made up, and I'm a complete novice at this, so feel free, if you want to create something else, please go for it. Again, I just went with the fall theme and made some leaves and a tree trunk. And now is where we're going to use our cardstock to glue everything down. We might not get to this portion, depending on how many scrolls and things you decide to make for this evening. So it could just be that you lay it down and pick it back up. But when you are ready to glue everything down, I would recommend using either that scrap piece of paper or a paper plate, because again, we only want to use a little bit of glue. So when we're ready to glue things down, I would recommend just kind of putting a few dabs of glue on the paper, and then if you have another piece of scrap paper or a used gift card, that would be handy to kind of just wipe your glue so that it is evenly distributed on your paper. And then when you're ready to adhere it to your cardstock, just grab your shape and dip it into the evenly distributed glue and then add it to your cardstock wherever you would like. So again, I hope you've enjoyed this process. Please show us your created completions when you're done. I would love to see those on our Facebook page, or feel free to email me, and thank you so much.